So let's talk about working with units that have seams pressed open because this makes some people a little nervous. We're used to nesting seams. So in nesting, you've pressed to one side, usually to the dark, and that means on the opposite side, the corresponding unit would have its seams going the opposite way. So you do not have that nesting when you press your seams open. So yes, you do have to pay a little bit more attention. So let's talk about this. I'm going to sew these two half square triangle units together. What I want is I'm going to want my unit to look like this, which means I want these points to come out perfect. So when I match these up, I am, of course, matching up raw edges. But I also want to pay attention, do these seams line up? I don't have that nesting to go by feel. So instead, I have to fuss with it just a little bit. So see, if I fold that back, I can see that they match. Now, trust yet verify, right? So this is where I'm going to advocate that you have some lovely, fine, sharp pins so that you can pin and test this. We're going to eyeball 1/4 of an inch. If you don't do that, I recommend starting to do that because the more you do it, the better you will get at eyeballing 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so I've pinned, and I call this the pin test. So I've pinned as though I'm sewing. Why? It's that trust yet verify. I'm going to fold this back to see, will my seams match? And if I look real closely right there, yes, they will. So I know that I have good alignment. Now, I cannot sew like this because my pins are where I need to be sewing. So before I move my pins, I'm going to go in and pin perpendicular to the raw edge. And once I do that, then yes, I can remove those pins because nothing's going to shift. Now, if you're thinking, well, why'd you stop pinning? Because this is where I'm concerned. I can match up the rest of this raw edge without pinning it. All right, so we have done the pin test. We have matched up our seams. We've sewn and we've pressed those seams open. So on the front, it's going to look like this. On the back, it's going to look like this. Now, I want to sew these two units together. I'm going to repeat that same process. This time, I have 3 points where I need to match up. Out here on the edge, here in the center, out here on the edge. So we're going to do that same pin test, and I'm going to recommend that you start in the center and match up that center. So we're matching up our raw edges along this way, but we're also matching up these seams. Now, remember the pin test. We pin as though we're sewing. We're eyeballing our 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm going to do it there at my center intersection. I'm going to come over here to my edge, and I need these seams to line up. And if I just fold this back, it'll kind of give me an idea of where I'm at. Okay, it looks like I need to shift a little bit. So you just keep fussing with it a little bit, and then you pin as though you're sewing. And our goal is to match up that seam line. We're going to do the same thing over here on this edge. And again, I can't stress enough, fine pins are going to be your best friend. These are Bowen glass head pins. They're really fine and they pin wonderfully. Thicker pins are going to be more difficult to work with fine points like this. All right, so I've pinned, and now the pin test, we want to fold this back to see if everything matches. And it almost does. This matches up, this matches up. I have to do a little bit of work over here on this corner. And ta-da! Persistence and pinning pays off because all of our intersections match. And yes, I continued pressing those seams open on the back because I'm going to have lovely flat units. I'm going to have a lovely flat quilt. And when I go to quilt it, everything is going to lay beautifully and I'm not going to have any bumps or lumps.